Feels colder than the forecast, don't you think?
Yeah, and quieter. Almost too quiet.
Let's keep moving and find a place to set up camp. I don't want to be out here after dark.
On a cold winter night in 1959, 9 experienced hikers set out into the frozen wilderness of the Ural Mountains in Soviet Russia. They were young, intelligent, and prepared for the harsh conditions, but their journey would take a chilling turn that no one could have foreseen. Days later, their bodies were found in the most bizarre and inexplicable circumstances. Their tent had been slashed open from the inside, their clothing torn away, and their bodies scattered across the mountainside. Some with gruesome injuries that defied explanation. Missing eyes, missing tongues, and a strange presence of radiation on their clothing. This was no ordinary tragedy. But there's more to this story than meets the eye. Was it simply a tragic accident, or was something darker at play? Could these hikers, seemingly innocent students, have been spies? Was this a covert mission gone horribly wrong? In this video, we dive deep into the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass Incident, exploring the eerie theories that have plagued investigators for decades. Were these hikers victims of espionage? Or was their fate the result of something far more sinister, hidden deep within the Soviet Union's dark and secretive world? Join us as we uncover the chilling truth behind one of the most disturbing mysteries in history, the Dyatlov Pass Incident. The past doesn't sleep. It lingers. In ash and iron, in whispers behind ruined walls, buried in silence, are stories left untold, echoes of those who vanished, voices lost to time. But the archive remembers. This is where history breathes again. This is Archived Stories, because some stories were never meant to be forgotten. The 9 hikers were led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old student at the Ural Polytechnical Institute in Sverdlovsk, now Yekaterinburg. They were seasoned mountaineers with years of experience navigating the most challenging terrains. This group of university students, vibrant, talented, and eager for adventure, were no strangers to the harshest of conditions. The group's mission was simple: to hike across the Ural Mountains to the peak of Otorten, a mountain known for its remote and rugged environment. The expedition was supposed to be a test of their physical endurance and technical climbing abilities. However, something would go terribly wrong. By January 25, 1959, they had set off from Sverdlovsk. After a few days of travel, they arrived at the edge of the Ural Mountains and began their climb toward their destination. Despite the sub-zero temperatures, snowstorms, and the bitter cold, they pressed on. They knew the terrain well and had made detailed plans. This was supposed to be just another hike, a challenge, but nothing too unusual. Yet, as they reached Dyatlov Pass on February 1st, something happened. Something no one could have predicted. On the evening of February 1st, the group set up camp at the base of a slope near the mountain. It wasn't an ideal location. The slope made it more vulnerable to avalanches, but the hikers chose it because they wanted to make progress before the worst of the weather hit. The tent was pitched and the group began preparing their meals. They were in high spirits. After all, they had only a day or two left before reaching their final destination. But as night descended, things started to take an unsettling turn. At around midnight, something startled the group. It was an unknown force. Was it the roar of an avalanche, a sudden gust of wind, or something else entirely. The hikers, in a state of panic, cut their way out of their tent. In a frenzy, they fled into the night without proper clothing or footwear, abandoning their gear, food, and even their most basic survival tools. The wind howled louder. The night grew colder. They were barefoot and lightly clothed. The freezing temperatures reached -30 degrees Celsius, and the snowstorm around them intensified. Whatever they were running from, whether real or imagined, was pushing them toward the unknown. Days passed before a search party was launched. The hikers hadn't returned to the nearest settlement, and they hadn't made contact with anyone. On February 26th, a rescue mission was dispatched to find them. What they uncovered was far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. The team discovered the hikers' abandoned tent, cut open from the inside. Items were left behind in a hurry: socks, boots, and their most essential survival tools. They hadn't left because they wanted to, they had fled in fear. The tent itself was slashed open from within, a puzzling decision. But the true horror lay in what was discovered next. The hikers' bodies were found scattered around the area, some partially clothed, others with strange injuries that seemed inconsistent with a normal accident. One body was found with a severe head injury, others had crushed ribs, and some had internal damage so severe it was likened to the force of a car crash. The bodies were spread over a wide area, with some found in a state of undress, yet there was no sign of a struggle or external trauma that would indicate an attack. The most disturbing element of the discovery? Some hikers had missing eyes and a missing tongue. It was an inexplicable detail that puzzled investigators for decades. For over 60 years, the Dyatlov Pass Incident has sparked a wide range of theories. The most popular theory, the avalanche theory, put forth that an avalanche occurred, forcing the hikers to flee the tent in a panic. Yet, experts who have studied the site point out that there's no clear evidence of an avalanche. The damage to the tent doesn't align with typical avalanche patterns, and the location of the hikers' bodies doesn't suggest that they were caught in an avalanche. Another theory, the infrasound theory, suggests that infrasound produced by the high winds in the area could have caused panic among the hikers. Infrasound is said to trigger feelings of dread and confusion, making the hikers flee the safety of their tent without thinking clearly. But again, there is little solid evidence to support this. One of the more chilling theory, the military testing theory, proposes that the hikers accidentally stumbled upon a Soviet military test, possibly a weapons test, that went horribly wrong. The trauma to the bodies, particularly the internal injuries, suggests that the hikers may have been exposed to some kind of secret military experiment. But this theory remains speculative with no concrete proof. And now we come to the most controversial and dark theory of all. Could these hikers have been spies? This theory posits that the Dyatlov group in fact was not just an ordinary group of university students. Some believe they may have been involved in covert operations, spying on the Soviet Union's nuclear program or other sensitive areas. The timing of their hike raises questions. This was the height of the Cold War, with tensions between the Soviet Union and the United States at their peak. The hikers' university, the Ural Polytechnical Institute, was known for its close ties to the Soviet military and intelligence services. Was it possible that the hikers were being used as pawns in a political game? Perhaps they were on a mission they weren't fully aware of, and their deaths were the result of a military operation gone awry. Several pieces of evidence have fueled this theory. For instance, some hikers were found wearing clothing with traces of radiation, which could suggest that they had been exposed to radioactive material. Could they have been exposed to something classified, something they weren't supposed to witness? In addition, the bizarre internal injuries found on the hikers' bodies resemble injuries caused by explosions or violent force, something that is more common in military operations than in an avalanche or natural disaster. Could it have been an accident, or were they indeed caught in something far darker? We may never know. The Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of the most perplexing mysteries in the history of the Soviet Union, and indeed the world. Over the years, countless theories have been proposed, but none have been able to conclusively explain the events that unfolded on that fateful night. Was it an accident, a military test gone wrong, or something far more sinister like espionage? While we may never know the full truth, the Dyatlov Pass Incident will continue to captivate the imaginations of those who seek answers to the question, what really happened in the mountains of the Ural? As the wind continues to howl through Dyatlov Pass, the legacy of those 9 hikers lives on in the shadow of the mountains. Their deaths remain a chilling reminder of how easily the truth can be buried, and how certain mysteries are never meant to be solved.